Hello everyone, Evelina here, Feel Grow Live. Welcome to another episode. Thank you for being here. This is the second episode in the series of Mental Health for Beginners. And this episode I'm going to be talking to you about a very specific aspect of mental health, which is the fact that almost every problem you are facing within your mind, every challenge in your life, or every issue, this is what we call issues, can be traced down to your mental health. What I seem to be noticing is that when we are having some kind of an issue, we are trying to resolve it by applying some kind of method or strategy, or let's just bring a simple example of when we try to be more productive or when we can't concentrate and we try to force ourselves into performing better. So what I'm going to offer in this video is for you to look at problems that you're facing as stemming from the absence of mental health. This is for people who are trying to transform themselves, discover themselves for the first time sometimes, rediscover themselves and how capable they are, but also for people who invalidate their mental health. They think, oh, that's not important. You know, it doesn't matter that I have a bit of anxiety. It doesn't matter that I feel depressed. I'm just going to keep plodding along and keep forcing myself by trying to force myself and perform certain behaviors that will get me where I need to go. So although this could be effective and you could be hearing or listening to advice that will tell you that yes, you need to conquer your behaviors and yes, you need to change your behaviors and everything will change. And again, that is sometimes productive, but most of the time is not. If your life is great, don't watch this video, it's going to be a waste of time. But if you, however, want to work on yourself, this is an invitation to look at your behaviors as symptoms rather than the cause. And we're going to look at the states of the nervous system as the root cause of all your behaviors. I'm going to teach you how to look at the cause, how to connect with the cause, accept the reason for your behaviors, and then changing the state so you can then change your behaviors with ease. Because as I said, although it could be sometimes effective because we can force ourselves into performing certain things, but we are using a lot of energy for that. So I'm all about the nervous system and the states of the nervous system. I'm going to be referring to them as I usually do, but for those of you who are here for the first time or you don't know what I'm sort of teaching, then I'll just recap quickly what I mean by states of the nervous system. Your nervous system has only 3 states to respond to its environment. The first state is what I call a green state. It's called rest, digest, regenerate, where you feel safe and social, where you can be yourself, be at ease with what's happening, be relaxed, etc. I'm not going to go into details, but I just want you to know about that. So that's the first response. The second response, it's what I call the red state, which is where anxiety resides, where you are anxious. And again, very often it happens outside of your awareness. You don't even know. Unless you're having a panic attack, it's very difficult to know where your nervous system is. So this is what I refer to as red mode of the nervous system. And the third mode, the third way to respond for your nervous system is what I call a grey mode. This is where you feel depressed, demotivated, sort of lethargic, you have no energy in your system, because that's actually the case. In the grey mode, you have no energy in your system at all, therefore it's very difficult to do normal things. It's very difficult to do even basic things. That's why people who are very depressed, or as some people say, clinically depressed, it's very difficult for them to perform even the easiest of tasks. So when we are facing problems and issues, and I don't know whether you've noticed, but certainly I have, we seem to have the same problems with ourselves or about ourselves. They're almost like they run on repeat, right? So whatever the issue is, try to name it first, of course. So I'm going to keep it kind of neutral. So let's talk about not being productive, right? You are having a very good moment of your day. You think, I'm going to go home and do this. You're thinking about, all those things you have to be doing and you want to be productive, etc. And then you get home and you do nothing. You just collapse into the sofa and watch Netflix, right? And you think, oh my God, I'm lazy, I'm useless, I've promised myself this, I've promised myself that. And that could even be applicable to simple things. I'm going to make a phone call, I'm going to reply to this email, right? So unless we absolutely have to, we don't tend to do things for ourselves. That would be an indication that your nervous system is in a survival mode. And as I said before, as I said at the beginning of this video, every single problem that you're facing could be traced down to the absence of mental health. So if you're thinking like, oh yeah, my mental health is not important, that what's in the past, that's in the past, and you're totally ignoring yourself, you're suppressing how you feel, you're faking how you feel, and you are forcing yourself to behave in a certain way without feeling a certain way, that's a very difficult place to be. So I want you to pause here and think about everything you do in your life and what you don't do in your life as stemming from the state of your nervous system. And the absence of mental health is how the survival state manifests, okay? So the fact that you cannot think about a solution, you can't be productive, you can't do what you set yourself up for, you can't keep promises to yourself, you seek soothing behaviors, it's all due to your state. Very often people blame themselves, berate themselves, judge themselves. I'm useless, I'm lazy, I'm pointless. I've heard those before as well. If you bring awareness into the state your nervous system is in, then you can actually change your behaviors. That's the only sort of circumstances in which you can actually create a proper shift. So let me tell you this, mental health and survival states, anxiety and depression, are not only mental, but first and foremost, they're full-on physiological experiences of your body. Golden rule of the nervous system is that you act out the state your nervous system is in. Your behaviors and your thinking about your behaviors and about yourself is an extension of the state your nervous system is in, for good and for bad. If your nervous system is in the green mode, which is rest, digest, regenerate, safe and social, you're going to be behaving in a very different way to when you are in the red mode, when you're anxious. So think about it, how you behave depending on the context. Why is it that when you go on holiday and you relax for 3 to 5 days, or, obviously it's very different for everyone, but when you are not overwhelmed with your everyday inner experience, then you can be a different self. So I want to invite you to look at your mental health as something that dominates and determines your identity. Therefore, if your nervous system is in the survival state, then you're going to act out this state. If your nervous system is in the grey mode, which is a shutdown, a form of depression when you feel demotivated, lethargic, you have this kind of apathy about life and yourself, it's very difficult to be in any productivity or creativity or anything. There's very little energy in your system, therefore you will have to exert enormous amount of energy to even do the simplest of tasks, let alone deal with problems when it comes to your relationships, to your job, because it applies to every single problem, every single challenge. Because the reality of absence of mental health is that you are not capable to look at certain things with perspective rather than perception. Your perceptions of things changes, so you won't be able to see a solution. You won't be able to have a perspective that's required for you to find a solution to your problem. Whether it's a psychological problem or emotional problem, being in a survival state compromises your capacity for thinking. One of the things that is compromised when you are in survival state is your prefrontal cortex. It's that forehead bit which is responsible for a thing called executive function. So your higher thinking processes, where you have planning, organization, problem solving, working memory, so a short-term memory where you have to keep few things in mind at the same time. That's why people who are anxious, they can't remember things. They can't remember what they did 3 hours ago, right? Because that area of the brain that is responsible for those cognitions, for your thoughts actually, is jumbled up and frazzled. So you won't be able to see a solution, you won't be able to execute a solution, you won't be able to see a solution because your perception of your world, your environment, and how you see yourself is compromised. So you're not going to see yourself as a capable, intelligent, enough or good enough person to approach that. A very good example is where you need to have a difficult conversation in your relationship, let's say, or you need to address something that's been bothering you. And if you do it out of being reactive, right? So anxious, for example, you won't be able to communicate clearly. You won't be able to say what you need to say. You're either going to go really reactive, irritable, and angry sometimes, or you're going to completely withdraw and shut off. So that's a very good example of state, not trait, because you are not able to have a clear communication, good conversation, constructive conversation when you're in survival mode, anxiety or depression. You're not able to. It's compromised. Your abilities are compromised. If you are, then, as I said, it's very difficult to get your point across. It's very difficult to think clearly. So you do tend to say things that you either regret or you've said them as a reaction and you need to apologize for them, for those things you said. So I want you to think about your issues and problems with yourself and with your mental health as being traced down to your state, not trait. And that's a very good question to ask yourself. Is it what I said, or is it what I do due to my state or trait? Because people tend to think, oh, you know, I've always been that way. This is my personality. This is, you know, we live the story we're being told. We act the story we're being told about ourselves in the world. And very often, 95% of the cases I've come across, that's not the case, because people do change depending on what states their nervous system is in. So if your identity, the way you see yourself, is centered around the absence of mental health, this is the biggest motivator for you to prioritize your mental health. Because once you prioritize your mental health, once you learn that you act out your state, then if you start addressing and you learn to address your state, then majority of your problems will dissipate and dissolve. Because, as I said, what you say and what you do is not due to who you are, is due to the state of the nervous system. And in today's world, we are constantly being primed for survival. So in anxiety, the fear is running the show. So if you're acting out the fear, you're going to be acting out your survival identity. So you're not going to be your full self. You're not going to be able to express yourself in a manner that is constructive. You're going to be reactive, you're going to get angry, you're going to get hijacked by fear. And again, by definition and by design, we're not conscious about these things. No one teaches us these things, right? And people think, yeah, you know, I haven't been paying attention to my mental health, but that's okay. I get by, I'm fine. But you can't separate the two. So if you're having issues, and they're usually the same issues, whatever the problem is in your mind, and it's usually, as I said, the same problem, try and trace it down, connect it with yourself and your nervous system, and learn how to get to the green state, how to make sure that then your nervous system gets what it needs to get relaxed, or it gets enough energy. If you're depressed, if you suffer from depression, then start to build energy first, start to remove the obstacles to the energy flow first, and then your behaviors will be completely different, and your feelings will be completely different about you and yourself. Because the fact that you're not seeing yourself as capable of solving the problem, of learning anything, or applying for a better job, you're feeling hopeless and helpless, it's not because of who you are, it's because where your nervous system is. So there's a version of you in a green state that is capable, intelligent, smart, and wise, but you need to learn how to get there when it comes to your nervous system. Then, as I said, a lot of problems will just dissolve. But this is, among other things, this is what I teach in my course, that the way to green state, the way to get your nervous system and regulate your nervous system to go into the green state, to the rest, digest, and regenerate, it's very different for everyone. So what you like doing, what your nervous system wants you to do and needs you to do, it's very different, it's very individual. And the key here is for you to learn what that is. And not only that, but that changes. It's also about making decisions for yourself. Very often people say, you know, I can't make a decision. It's very difficult for me to make a decision. And then it's straight away I'm thinking, this is anxiety. Because inability to make a decision, it's an indication that your frontal lobe, your executive function, is fragmented. It's a form of ADHD, right? You could say that. But we don't have to go this far. It's enough that you just very frazzled and you can't make a decision. Again, you need to learn to calm and regulate your nervous system in the very moment and then try and make a decision. Don't force yourself to make a decision or find a solution. You won't have clarity for finding a solution, for being able to express yourself when you're in survival mode. Because in anxiety, you have excess energy in your system. In depression, you are deficient in energy in your system. Your nervous system won't have capacity for all those higher things, for you to make a decision, for you to find a solution, for you to express yourself, for you to even know what to do, what's the next step, right? So I'm suggesting you find a way to create space in your nervous system, to create a space to sort of regain some capacity for your nervous system, because it's in you. And the green state, I very often say that, it's all about how children function, right? Obviously, I know people who sadly haven't experience the green state, but you've come this far, so there is green state in you. It's just that you've forgotten how to achieve it. I teach about it in my course, Mechanic of Mental Health. Check it out. But you can also use this information. It's all about you being able to stop yourself in your tracks, calm yourself down with breath, movement, or simply rest, because a lot of us are deficient in sleep and constructive rest. And Netflix, no, it's not rest, because that's consuming, and we're just consuming solutions, podcasts, we listen to shit. That's not going to work, because it hasn't. It would have worked, up until this point. So it's about you stopping and actually asking yourself a question: what does my nervous system need in this very moment for me to approach this problem or an issue with some capacity, with some clarity? So I don't do things reactively. Whether it's a conversation you need to have, apply for a new job, do some kind of training, learn something, get a new skill, ask someone out, talk to your spouse, look after your children. It's all the same. It's all about learning how to regulate your nervous system so you can be the whole you. You can be the capable you. And don't worry about doing everything at once. Just think about what's the next step, right? So choose one thing you want to solve, not 15 or 17. Because this is what, like, people, when they make a to-do list, right? They to do this, this, and this, and that. When you're reading this, or when you're thinking about all those things you need to be doing, you overwhelm yourself, right? Or if you think, I need to have this important conversation with someone, then just create conditions for the conversations to happen. You won't be able to know what's going to happen. Just create a condition within yourself, because you can only do that with yourself, so that conversation can happen, right? And then you need to be calm and collected in order for this conversation. And it's never one conversation, right? So even learning to communicate, it's a long-term goal. It's not like, oh, in the next 3 months, I'm going to this, that, and the other. No, if you've been living in survival, which I'm assuming you have, because it's called the absence of mental health, you have patterns to overcome, and you need to learn those patterns, how your nervous system operates, how your mind operates. The fact that your mental health is an extension of your nervous system. Right? So you really need to learn about your nervous system, but in the meantime, just learn to stop in your tracks, get calm and collected, and name one problem. And once you change the state of your nervous system, so if you're in anxiety, learn to calm down. If you're in depression, learn to build some kind of energy. Then you approach a problem with a totally different perspective and different capability, because your brain works differently and you can be your whole self. What that means, being the whole self, I'm going to be talking about in the next episode, because at this moment we're talking about what it means, the absence of mental health. But I'm going to be talking to you about the green state, which is rest, digest, and regenerate. So I'm going to be actually talking about what is mental health, because not a lot of people talk about this. Thank you very much. Please check out my course and subscribe to my channel. Drop me a comment, drop me a like. It's really helpful when you do that. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.